Japan is a remarkable country, famous for cherry blossoms, Mount Fuji, anime, and cool technology. But it's also home to some completely weird and sometimes wonderful ideas and objects that are unlike anything you'll find anywhere else on our planet. From purchasing porno from vending machines to taking a pork noodle bath, here are 20 things that can't be seen anywhere but in Japan. Number 20. Renting a girlfriend. Now, if you're a super busy, career-focused, modern Japanese gentleman, it can apparently be extremely tricky to find time to have a girlfriend. So obviously, in a country that's devised convenient and unique solutions to many modern-day problems, they have an idiosyncratically Japanese response. Renting a girlfriend, or a family, or even a middle-aged man, a pretend grandpa, or basically any version of a person you may require is a new but increasingly popular thing to do in Japan. Now, don't be confused because this is absolutely not like a dating app or the oldest profession. This is a service where the young woman pretends to be your girlfriend, is only available to go on the cleanest and most wholesome of activities as your companion. She will act like your girlfriend in that she will hold your hand or share your pudding and laugh at all of your jokes. But she sure as heck isn't going to partake in any fruitier activities or trouserial sporting events. She'll meet your mother, accompany you to the office party, or even go to dinner, but she's not available to service your more intimate requirements. Thank you very much indeed. However, this is Japan, and there are certainly people out there whose job it is to assist you with those sorts of needs, so fill your boots. Before we go on, like this video, smash the subscribe button, and click the notification bell right now, or this centipede will crawl on your face when you're sleeping. Number 19. Vending machine country. Japan has different ideas about vending machines. To you and I, a vending machine is a convenient place to purchase a drink or a snack, or occasionally an adult accessory perhaps. But in Japan, they've taken the possibilities of these convenient dispensers to entirely new levels, and it does get pretty weird. There are approximately 3.2 million vending machines that are cluttering up the streets and alleyways of Japanese towns and cities. That's one machine for every 36 people in the country. This amounts to annual sales of $6.4 billion, which works out at $60 per person. That's a whole lot of posting pennies into slots. Now, the excessive use of vending machines is not without its risks. There are actually many reports of wobbly dispensers toppling over and squashing people, and this has proven fatal in at least 2 cases, as well as the standard boiling water mishap and, of course, the perennial stuck purchased item. But what Japan has achieved is the expansion of the possibilities of this particular consumer delivery system. Now, there are machines that sell the useful things like foodstuffs, and then there are some that sell next-level edible items like noodles and rice, hamburgers, bananas, and even milk. Beyond that, there are some which contain liquor, others with golf balls, clothing, umbrellas, batteries, fortunes, toilet paper, flowers, and of course pornography. All the essentials, really. Number 18. Super weird game shows. The madness of the Japanese game show is legendary through the rest of the world. These shows are on a completely different planet than most that are made in the United States. Even the more dare-based, bug-eating, outdoor surviving kinds of shows aren't a patch on the insanity that is the Japanese game show. Now, for some reason, presumably entertainment, these shows mainly set about putting their contestants into super humiliating situations. But the sheer variety of ways to do weird or embarrassing things to these people is actually staggering. They're designed to be as weird and outrageous as possible. This is basically the point. One of the most popular styles of game show is the batsu, or punishment kind, in which contestants that lose the competition are then subjected subjected to the madder or more humiliating sort of forfeit that's frequently associated with this form of entertainment. Some of the wacky activities on popular shows include things like slippery stairs, in which the contestants aim to scale a flight of impossibly, well, slippery stairs. Oh, the hilarity. Then there is the infamous Wall of Boxes, which is a game show where players just need to outlast their opponents and stay on the wobbly wall of boxes while everything around them is trying to knock them down. Another popular physical game is that of Human Tetris, which is exactly what it sounds like, although no, not that. Get your mind out of the gutter, people. There's also a whole raft of shows which revolve around eating things. One is Candy or Not Candy, in which the players must try eating things and determine whether or not it's candy. None of it is tremendously complex, really. The clues are all in the names, aren't they? Then there's eating stuff in weird places. Noodles in a washing machine, anyone? You know, all the standards. The limits of the game show madness is only really restrained by the imagination of the sadists that create them, and some of them are apparently quite mad. Number 17. Spend the day on a ghost island. We are beginning to establish that Japan does things a little bit differently, that's for certain. And what's next on the list? Well, the Japanese island of Hashima was abandoned back in the 1970s and had been a 5,000-person strong community that had been built around the mines that were then the purpose of the place. Since the end of that industry on the island, it's found a new purpose, giving day trippers the willies. That's right, this is a ghost island which draws tour boats of visitors looking for an eerie thrill. Many of the structures on the island are in a state of serious disrepair and risking collapse, so the days of spooky independent exploration are gone. If you want to take in the crumbling sights of Hashima, you have to take a tour, which likely does not unravel some of the more scary aspects of the adventure, although it still looks kind of like the scene of a zombie apocalypse. So it really depends on how fertile your imagination can be. Shuffling around in a group of straw hat wearing geriatrics may just be the edge of fear factor, as long as you don't miss the return boat crossing back over, that is. Number 16. Square watermelon. Now, I love watermelon, but I've often pondered, as I'm sure that you have as well, just why these fruits only come in boring old round shapes. Surely it's time to make a fruit more fun. Why not make it into a more exciting shape for starters? Well, obviously, Japan is already ahead of the game in the fruit format revolution, and they're taking it very seriously indeed. In fact, fruit in general is a serious business in Japan. There's a grading system that means that the very highest quality, most perfectly formed specimens of fruit can demand extraordinarily high prices and are often given as special gifts that represent a deeply meaningful and respectful gesture. And so, taking this reverence for the fruity to the next level, Japanese farmers have come up with a way to produce square watermelons, as well as other pretty shapes like hearts and triangles. Originally, the idea behind the square watermelon was to make the awkward fruit more manageable. You know, so it would fit in the fridge better and cut in neater pieces. However, as the appeal of this shape became apparent, those with a passion for fruit fiddling found ever more fancy ways to tidy up the fruit basket. Nowadays, a perfectly formed square watermelon can set you back as much as $160. Seems like there are some wallets that are just ripe for the picking. Number 15. Non-melting ice cream. Now, if you prefer your food to contain as many additives and unpronounceable items as possible, then this is the one for you. Ice cream is traditionally made from fairly simple stuff, you know, food items like cream and sugar and whatnot, but that's a bit boring, isn't it? I mean, why not bung some more things in there so that you can get the completely unnecessary and altogether nonsense-based feature like non-melting, instead of just sticking with the tried and tested technique of keeping it frozen and then eating it before it liquefies? The addition of the delicious-sounding polyphenol liquid is what makes the magic here. The stuff solidifies dairy cream on contact by making it difficult for the water and oil elements of the foodstuff to separate, thus keeping the shape of the cream for longer and preventing melting. So now, if you're prone to forgetting your ice cream or dawdling around during eating, you can take your time and the stuff won't melt. I mean, it's just what we've all been waiting for, isn't it? I'm so glad that science is busying itself with all the important things, you know. Number 14. Kawaii culture. In Japan, the culture of cuteness is on a completely different level than anywhere else on the planet. Kawaii is the Japanese word for cute, and it's spawned a whole load of characters, cartoons, toys, outfits, stationery, merchandise, and even lifestyle choices. Edging the borders between a permanent childlike state and the uncomfortable weirdness of adults enjoying Hello Kitty backpacks, Kawaii culture is a uniquely Japanese phenomenon that has recently begun to be exported, in small part anyways, to other countries in the Western world. There are many aspects of kawaii that are taken to another extreme in Japan, though, where people in the United States might find, let's say, Nintendo characters cute. In Japan, there's a whole subculture where people actually dress like them, and not just for Halloween. This is a lifestyle, people. It includes the outfits, the hairstyles, and its accessories, but also requires the childish and exaggeratedly cutesy mannerisms. These people become the characters. Another aspect of the kawaii, which is infiltrated daily life, is that of the mascot. Every area of Japan seems to have its own mascot, generally a cute but sometimes creepy character that's said to represent that place. Now, obviously, this makes the selling of souvenirs simple, but it goes beyond the marketing and seems to say something about the uniquely Japanese attitude towards the culture of the cute. Everywhere you look, there are cutesy characters and kawaii styles, from cafe culture to pop stars, advertising to art. Kawaii culture is everywhere, just like a nasty, contagious rash. Number 13. Japan's Island of Bunnies. A case in point, the Island of Bunnies is a weird and super cute example of Japan's kawaii obsession in action. The island of Okunoshima is the inland sea of Japan, and it's home to a population of thousands of wild rabbits. For real. The bunnies are protected by law, cats and dogs are banned, and these cute fluff balls are left to their own devices, which is generally, as I'm sure you know, to breed like rabbits. But despite the fact that this is essentially a perpetual bunny orgy, it remains an enormously popular place for tourists to visit. A favorite activity for visiting humans is to get involved with the rabbits and lay on the ground, all while the animals hop all over you. It's cute, I guess, but the sheer numbers of bunnies is enough to give me pause. There's something of horror movie vibes about this. Even if it seems cute to begin with, thousands of bunnies crawling all over you? No, there's nothing weird about that at all. But I mean, guinea pigs on the other hand, oh, I'd let my pet guinea pig Twinkle crawl all over me any day. Number 12. Arashiyama Bamboo Grove. Now, if you can avoid getting poked in the eyeball by a selfie stick, this popular tourist destination promises a unique experience, even if you do have to share it with a bazillion other visitors. Located near Kyoto, the Arashiyama Bamboo Grove is an unusual-looking place. The bamboo grove is a purely decorative landscape and not designed to be used for anything much more than posing for photos and wondering at the spectacle of the tall and somewhat spooky bamboo shoots. No doubt there are a million Instagram posts that feature this supposedly unique environment. It does look pretty though, especially when it's all lit up for an evening or when the hordes have parted for a brief moment. Number 11. Capsule Hotel. Now, if you've ever wondered what it might be like to wake up inside of a morgue, then the Capsule Hotel might be the experience that you've been waiting for. In the ever-shrinking spaces of the Japanese city, the Capsule Hotel has taken limited size to the extremes of what's actually tolerable. Of course, sleeping in a 7 feet by 3 feet by 4 feet cubicle is ever so slightly bigger than sleeping in a coffin, but only just slightly. And when the average hotel room in Tokyo can set you back a hefty $200 a night, the $25 price tag for sleeping in a weird corridor of cupboards might help soften the coffin vibes just a teeny bit. Number 10. Hitachi Seaside Park. The extraordinary manicured landscape of the Hitachi Seaside Park looks as though it's landed from a Star Trek planet or perhaps even Tim Burton's imagination. Overlooking the Pacific Ocean, the Hitachi Seaside Park is a massively popular and totally unique Japanese tourist destination. With over 3.5 hectares of space, the year-round planting is visually stunning with literally millions of brightly colored flowers blooming at any given moment. It is most famous for the season when its displays of blue Nemophila flowers create breathtaking scenes with more than 4.5 million of these things across the whole park. As well as these spectacular and completely gigantic displays, this place has all the stuff that you'd likely expect of an outdoor tourist attraction. You know, all the usual gardens and amusements and wholesome activities, but you'll also be guaranteed to get some weird pictures for your Instagram grid, and that's the main goal of everything after all, isn't it? Number 9. Sumo. Japan's national sport, sumo, is an ancient tradition which originated as a performance that was designed to entertain the Shinto deities. This form of wrestling still honors many of the religious rituals that were part of the original traditions of sumo. The sport is still only practiced by men, as this was apparently how it was always in the old days. It has simple rules. There are 2 competitors, known as rikishi. They wrestle each other in the ring, and the first that exits the ring, or who has any part of their body other than the soles of their feet touch the ground in any way, well, they become the loser. Super simple, but it's still completely unlike any other wrestling on the planet. The size of the sumo wrestlers, combined with a traditional costume, makes sumo quite the spectacle. Unlike in other combat sports, there are no weight limits or even categories, so it's quite possible for wrestlers of totally different sizes to be matched up against one another. But being bigger is almost always an advantage in this sport. In fact, the art of weight gain is an integral part of a sumo wrestler's training. Being big is taken very seriously indeed. Rikishi regularly consumes 7,000 calories a day, often weighing as much as 400 pounds. Number 8. Japan's Cuddle Cafes. Here we are at another of Japan's unusual solutions for the terminally busy and lonely elements of their society, the Cuddle Cafe. Now, is this creepy? I'm not exactly sure where the line is drawn. It might be somewhere around here, or perhaps back in the girlfriend rental question, but let's just have a look and discuss it in the comments below. Apparently, the issue in Japanese society is that meeting people and dating has become increasingly difficult for hardworking people who have long working hours and a career-oriented lifestyle. So what do these businessmen do at the end of a long day at the office when all they want is a little bit of a squeeze and a smooch? Well, they apparently can go to a cuddle cafe. A what now, you may ask? That's right, a cuddle cafe. It's the euphemistically titled venue for the locations that are springing up all over Japanese cities, where young women are available to give sad and lonely guys a little hug or a hand holding after a hard, long day. So for a fee, you can get that hug, or have someone sit and look at you, or even just rest your weary business head on that young lady's lap. It's all quite normal. There's nothing to see here at all. But you do have to ask, how is it that work has stolen so much of people's lives that this is a situation at all? It's actually super depressing, to be honest. Everyone needs someone to hug. Come here, Twinkle. Number 7. High-tech toilets. The fancy toilets in Japan are pretty famous all around the world. High-tech toilets have been commonplace in Japan for many years and now are more frequently found than boring old traditional ones. With a whole bunch of buttons and snazzy features, super toilets are much more than just a receptacle for bodily waste. These things provide more services than a luxury car wash. Even the basic models offer the sitter a range of such wondrous delights as anal cleansing, bidet washing, deodorization, and the utterly essential seat warming. How the world has survived without such basics is an absolute mystery to me. We've been living like animals, and it's time we stopped parking our posteriors all willy-nilly without a proper bottom washing facility, let alone on a chilly old chamber pot. The sheer number of buttons and options are likely to boggle the basic brain, so before you engage with a tech toilet, make sure you clear your schedule or you simply won't have time to explore all the wonders of multiple flush options, which are based on the specific type of deposit that you've made. Or how about the integrated bidet selections with the inspiringly titled choices of oscillating, pulsing, and rear soft functions? You'll wonder how you ever lived without it. Number 6. A ramen noodle bath. Going to a traditional bathhouse is actually very common in Japan, but that's not exactly 100% uniquely Japanese. There are, after all, bathhouses all over the world, but what is unique, and perhaps intensely bonkers, who can really say, is the sort of treatment baths on offer at one certain spa resort in Japan. That would be the ramen noodle bath. That's right, a jolly good soak in a pork-based broth complete with ramen. Not so much as a way of combining dinner and bath time, although that's what I do. It's apparently all about giving one's complexion that special glow. The spa people claim that this particular concoction offers the skin a boost of collagen, which is what gives skin its plumpness. This, they say, is delivered by the way of the pork broth. You know, because of course it is. And if you don't fancy that, well, try a green tea plunge, or even a sake bath. Although, what effects sitting in a barrel of booze might have, who can really say? Number 5. The Japanese love for Kit Kat and their 300 flavors. Kit Kats are alright, I guess. I mean, I ate one before I started recording this. These wafer fingers that are covered in chocolate are a lunchbox staple in a lot of places. In fact, they're produced in 16 different countries around the world, but in Japan, they're so much more than just your standard chocolate bar. They don't just do regular Kit Kats in Japan. Why eat a boring old chocolate one when you can choose from no less than a measly 300 flavors? The name Kit Kat is coincidentally similar to the Japanese Kitokatsu, which means good luck or surely win. So the biscuit bar has been imbued with some sort of magical or fortune-dispensing properties which may or may not be within the confection's repertoire of talents. As a result of this accidental naming, the humble Kit Kat is regularly given as a gift of good luck around exam time in Japan. The flavors that are available in Japan may leave a little to be desired, unless of course you're into the idea of soy sauce or green tea flavored Kit Kat, and why wouldn't you be? If you're less adventurous, there are such delights as creme brulee, ginger ale, and cherry blossom. Do they go with a good cup of builder's tea though? That is really the only question that matters. Except for whether or not they have a green bean flavored one, because you know that's Twinkle's favorite. Number 4. KFC is a Christmas tradition in Japan. Everywhere has its own traditions, that much is true, and while most of these are handed down throughout the generations of families, there are some traditions that were concocted by marketing men and fed to unsuspecting individuals until they adopt them as their own. In Japan, a country so ancient and stuffed to the brim with its own customs and traditions, it may be surprising to discover that this particular oddity was actually cooked up by a salesman back in 1974. Japan does not, as a whole, celebrate Christmas, but the way the story of this surprising tradition goes is that back in the early 1970s, the manager of Japan's first KFC restaurant began the idea with a little white lie. He apparently told people that eating KFC was an American Christmas tradition. Sounds a bit strange, but since turkey is essentially unavailable in Japan and there were very few options available that even remotely resembled classic Christmas food, people then began to get into the idea. It didn't take long for the eating of Kentucky Fried Chicken to become established as the norm in many places across Japan on December 25th, and now almost 50 years later, it's a tradition in its own right. Around 3.6 million Japanese people eat KFC for Christmas every year, and it takes some doing, with orders being placed up to 6 weeks in advance of the big day and people queuing out the door to get their traditional Christmas dinner on the day itself. How very festive indeed. Number 3. Madima or tuna eyes. Japanese cuisine, well, it certainly contains some weird and wonderful ingredients that are more or less unheard of on the plates of many Western diets. There are really so many different surprising items that are routinely eaten in Japan that it's difficult to choose which ones to focus on. But there are a few that are truly unique to this country and get the taste buds of alternative places in a tailspin. One such item is tuna eyes. Yes, the eye of the tuna is regularly eaten in Japan, and with great enjoyment as well. Also known as madima, tuna eyes are ingested with the belief that by doing so, you'll become more intelligent. Perhaps there's an ounce of truth in this notion, since the study of omega-3 fish oil has shown a connection between brain health and the eating of fish that is rich in the fatty acid as part of a healthy diet. So it kind of makes sense, but if there is a particular concentration of brain-boosting properties in these big old fish eyeballs, well, that seems unlikely to be honest. If you do fancy giving it a whirl with the tuna eyeball, it's generally prepared by boiling it. Yeah, there's a good image for you. And then serving it seasoned with soy sauce, mirin, or sake, and ta-da! You've got yourself a stare meal. Number 2. Nakisumo Baby Crying Festival. Well, here's a unique and super weird thing that can't be seen anywhere but in Japan. That much is true. The Nakisumo Baby Crying Festival is a tradition that, somewhat bizarrely, dates back centuries. Parents hand over their infants to sumo wrestlers, who then do everything in their power to make that baby cry. Yep, that's the purpose of the whole event. It's to make babies cry in the arms of really fat men. The more the better, and the louder and more piercing it is, then the much better it is for everyone else, apparently. This festival takes place annually at a temple in Tokyo, where there's a stage for the sumo wrestlers to perform the baby tormenting ceremony. The general idea behind this apparent madness is that people have long believed that the screeching and hollering of infants will drive away any demons that might be lurking nearby. Oh, and the baby with the biggest howl is also apparently then ensured a healthy and long life. Possibly one where they have a recurring nightmare about being bullied by humongous men in peculiar undergarments. Number 1. Most streets in Japan don't have names. Japan seems like a fairly confusing place, to be honest. It's a country where they make babies cry and torture people on the telly for funsies, so it's not quite like anywhere else on Earth. A visit to this fascinating but bizarre place is going to give you a solid dose of culture shock anyways. However, as well as feeling all discombobulated by the general strangeness of the situation, you may also find yourself quite lost. Unlike the Western world, Japan doesn't use street names to differentiate between places. They use a system of numbering the blocks and leaving the streets nameless. What this basically amounts to is that to locate somewhere, you need to know what block it's on rather than what street it's on. Now, that's not really too complex perhaps, but it is a system that will likely add to the general feeling of confusion that is a debut trip to the wonderfully unique country of Japan. So keep your map handy. You're definitely going to need it, and be prepared to lean into the strange. Well, I don't know about you, but I feel inspired to book a trip to Japan and see some of these bizarre and fascinating things for myself. I wonder what else there is to discover. Have you been to Japan? What extraordinary, unique experiences did you have? Let me know all about it in the comments below. Also, be sure to check out the other cool stuff showing up on the screen, and I'll see you next time.